Mr. Speaker, with only 6 legislative days left before the Congress departs for August recess, I'm increasingly concerned that we will not learn the answers to any of the questions I have raised over the past week before the 1-year anniversary of the attack on Benghazi, if ever. This is due in large part to the secretive nature of the investigations to date. Most of the key hearings into what happened that night in Benghazi have happened behind closed doors in classified settings, including a June hearing with General Carter Ham, who was head of U.S. forces in Africa the night of the attack. That is why I was surprised to hear comments made by General Ham at the Aspen Security Forum last week, where he spoke freely about the U.S. response to the attack. Does it bother any of my colleagues that General Ham can publicly speak about the military's response at a forum in Aspen, Colorado, where the tickets were $1,200. The American people should not have to pay $1,200. And yet his testimony before Congress was behind closed doors. According to a CNN report, General Ham told the Aspen audience that by the time an American drone arrived above the U.S. consulate, quote, the attack on the mission was winding down. By that time, quote, Ham knew Ambassador Stevens was missing and believed he could have been possibly kidnapped. General Ham was then quoted saying, quote, in my mind, at that point, we were no longer in response to an attack. We were in a recovery, and frankly, I thought we were in a potential hostage rescue situation. The article continued, quote, Ham said although he had authority to scramble a jet to the scene, he decided there was, quote, not necessity and there was not a clear purpose in doing so. To do what? Ham asked. It was a very, very, very uncertain situation, he said. It was a very uncertain situation indeed. Uncertain as to whether the terrorists held our ambassador as hostage, uncertain as to whether the terrorists would target the annex, as they did, uncertain as to whether this situation would last hours, days, weeks, or months, or years. Which raises the question, if his command required no additional authority to respond, what he then believed to be a hostage rescue situation, why did it take another 7 hours before AFRICOM ordered a C-17 aircraft in Germany to deploy to Libya to evacuate Americans? And why did that plane not leave Germany for another 8 hours after that? If the situation appeared to be deteriorating throughout the night at the annex, why wasn't there an additional effort to accelerate air support or even planes to evacuate American personnel directly from Benghazi? And given the betrayal of our supposed allied Libyan militia forces, which were calls to defend the consulate when unheeded, why would the Pentagon not move even faster to ensure there was reliable evacuation and hostage response force to assist the Americans in Benghazi? And given that no American plane arrived in Benghazi to support the evacuation, just what planes were used to evacuate the Americans in the morning of September 12th? The State Department's Accountability Review Board said 2 planes were used to transport Americans from Benghazi to Tripoli. We know that one was a Libyan Air Force C-130 that brought back the bodies of Ambassador Stevens, Sean Smith, Ty Wood, and Glenn Doherty. But the first to depart was a private charter jet. It took off at 7:40 a.m. with evacuees, including all wounded personnel, according to an unclassified version of the report. But just who owned that jet? Who owned that jet? Was it the same jet that brought in the 7-person response team from Tripoli earlier that night? Was it really chartered, or was it commandeered? How many wounded were evacuated on that jet? Of the wounded, how many were State Department employees, CIA employees, or security contractors? The ARB said when the first plane arrived in Tripoli, wounded personnel were transferred to a local hospital in exemplary coordination that helped save the lives of 2 severely injured Americans. Despite my letter I sent to Secretary Kerry, I have never received a full counting of how many Americans were injured in the attack. Are any of the wounded still receiving care in military hospitals or other medical facilities? Will we ever officially learn their names and they were heroes, the heroic action that night that resulted in their serious injuries? I think we can all agree that it would be constructive for those that were in the chain of command that night to publicly testify and answer these questions. The American people are losing confidence in their government. How will history judge the actions or inaction of the Obama administration and the response of the Congress to the Benghazi attack.
Gentleman's